All right. Hello and welcome to the Behind the Man series. Today we are here with Nick Hartmann. Nick, how are you doing?
Hey Nenad, I'm good. How are you?
Very, very good. Also very tired because I had a long day, but I guess you as well, right?
Yeah, for me too. For me too. A lot of things happened, and yeah, now I'm here having my glass of water, and I'm very happy with that.
Nice, nice. Glass of water, always the best. Is that your favorite drink? Water?
Yeah, I always drink water, or I drink green tea. That's the other option for me. Those two, especially in the morning. Making a cup of green tea, this whole can, and then I take it with me. And I was actually kind of inspired by you at some time because you made a video about how green tea changes your DNA, I guess, and how
Yeah,
this kind.
epigenetically, yeah.
Yeah, is it like that?
Yeah, it is. So basically, I wanted to say that some guy made an argument for green tea, so I really like that you do that in the morning.
Yeah. I liked it, and since then I drink a lot of green tea because I have it all around here. Got it as a present, and now it's getting used, so that's good.
Nice, nice. And is there any favorite sort of yours? Because there are like many different ones, right?
Oh, I'm not really an expert on this, so I have one. It's like I think I got it as a present like 1.5 years ago, and that's a special one from Japan, but I'm not pretty sure about that. What it
Like
really is.
kenaicha or the like with the roasted rice inside?
No, roasted rice. I think just a normal one, but it wasn't so cheap, so I don't know. Tastes good, and since I do it with 80 degrees, that's better because I used to do it with whole hundreds. Just letting the water cook, and that wasn't the best option. So now I enjoy it better. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends. Like a couple people say because it gets bitter. So I sometimes cook the bitter option, like with a little cheaper green tea, just pull in the 100 degrees. Because apparently in our diet that we have today, I'm not an expert on this, so don't quote me, please, at no point. But apparently we have too little bitter stuff in our food and in our nutrition, all in all, and it should be better to have that as well. But I don't know if this is true, so go find out for yourself. Check your sources. I'm not the best source for it. I'm just a green tea enthusiast.
Yeah. But that's interesting actually because I went to Vietnam at some point and they served a lot of green tea, and they left it there for a while, so it wasn't only there for 2 minutes or 3 minutes how I do it, but actually it was cooked longer, I guess. And this was very bitter, so I have never tasted anything like this in Germany. So in Asia, I think they are more bitter, like you say. And we don't really have this in our food today, I think. This is really hard to find. So yeah, I also enjoyed that, but I don't get this here actually.
Nice. And while we're talking food, do you have a favorite food you want to talk to us about?
Well, not really. I love fish. That's my favorite dish. If I get this, like a nice piece of laks or something, or how it is called. And I would always take this first in the restaurant if I go there. Also on pizza, amazing. I love that. And everything with garlic is just fine. I'm working right now, and my colleagues, they ask me every day, oh, you ate some garlic yesterday, right? And I have it like in every meal, so I'm really into that.
Nice. How did you come to garlic? Like, what was the path to discover garlic?
Oh, it's kind of funny because it's kind of a love-hate relationship. Because a couple of years ago, I wanted to talk about this as well, but when I was, a lot of resistance, a lot of fear still, it actually had a lot of effect on my digestion, and I couldn't eat lots of stuff. You had Alex here the last time in the podcast, and I really enjoyed his story because it kind of relates to mine. And I couldn't eat, for example, gluten, so everything with bread, not good. Also milk, and for me a couple other things like everything that was kind of really spicy. So spicy things like garlic and you know, other flavors, you know, they wouldn't really serve me good. And so I wouldn't really eat garlic for maybe 3 years or something. So in every meal, you know, I would watch it carefully that I don't really eat a lot of garlic. And you know, actually, since I've gotten better, I love eating garlic, and I love to have it in every single meal.
Nice. I'm a big fan of garlic as well. I have fun around it because a friend of mine, he had some kind of event where he went to a shaman, or maybe it was like a Chinese healer or something. And this friend of mine, he's a musician, and then he went to do this spiritual thing. And this guy just looked at him and said, "You know what you should do? Just eat like one thing of garlic. I don't know how's it called, but just like one piece of those, break them off and eat it like whole before you go to sleep every night." So he did this for a while. I know that garlic is supposed to like drop your blood pressure, and sometimes like when I eat too much garlic, I really want to sleep after my meals. This is something that happens, but for him, he like had like this full garlic, and I remember at some point he told me the story how he went to his brother's room to ask him something for tomorrow. Can I bring this or can I take it? And then he opened his mouth and this garlic stench came out, just destroying the whole room. And the brother would just like send him out of there.
Oh man, that's a funny story, because like, is it really like that? Like the master just told him, like, just, you know, I see you, you know, really just eat like garlic every day. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, and he did it, I think, for 6 months or for a whole year, something like that.
Then he got enlightened, right?
I cannot attest to that.
Because of the garlic, you know,
I don't think that garlic makes you.
Okay, we have to ask Julian about this, because this could be the secret, you know. Don't do meditations and don't do this inner work, but just eat a garlic and everything will, you know, transform actually.
What the interesting part is actually that there is so much knowledge that we have just lost over the time, right? People used to say, eat this grass, or yeah, eat that garlic, or go take like a cold plunge there, it will cure your whatever. And we lost a lot of that.
Mm. Yeah, that's crazy, man. I totally agree, because for some issues, right, you know, somebody would just have said, I don't know, 100 or 1,000 years ago, you have to take, I don't know, kind of this tea, and, you know, this will change your condition maybe a little bit. But, you know, I just came from my girlfriend today, you know, and she actually, she has rheuma. I don't know if you know that, or if you say it like this, but, you know, this is a chronic thing for her. And, you know, she has to take this really intense this really intense medicine, and you know, this is really pushing down her immune system, and she kind of got you know, bad skin because of that. And you know, she's going to the doctor, and he's telling her, you know, you have to take this other pill with you know, which even puts your immune system down even more. And you know, I think, you know, that's kind of crazy, you know. Why don't we try something like, I don't know, like a tea, or I don't know, but I'm not an expert in this. So, you know, I would really like to know the solutions, and maybe ask somebody who's like, I don't know.
Yeah, we have like Jonathan, he's a pharmacist. So
oh, really?
He would be an address with these questions. Yeah, I had a really lovely talk with him last Friday, so it's almost a week, but I haven't published it yet. But he actually happens to be a pharmacist, and what was completely amazing for me is I asked him what was like his main takeaway from his pharmacy studies, and can you guess what he said?
I don't know. Like every farmer, I don't know, maybe everything has its opposite, you know. So maybe, you know, if you cure one thing, you will have a problem in another area. Maybe something like that, I would guess.
Yeah, you'd expect that, right? He would be like that, or maybe something around medication, or maybe around development, or maybe something around how you can substitute. Well, it blew my mind what he told me. He told me his biggest takeaway from his studies to become a pharmacist was to learn how to talk to people.
Okay, crazy. So
Can
kind
you
of the
imagine?
marketing part.
Yeah, and it's
Oh,
not even
really?
marketing. It's really just like going to them and listening, basically what they
Mm,
want to say and what has been told to them. Because oftentimes he said that they're kind of the safety net between the doctors and the medication. So
mm,
patients would come like with doctor's order or whatever, and then say we need this medication, and then he would kind of talk to them a little bit more if they maybe have some allergies or if they're taking other medication, and see if there maybe isn't like a better fit for them, or just listen to like what their real problem is. Not that the doctors wouldn't be listening, but more in a way that sometimes there's so much to do, and so much patients to see, that certain things fall through the crack. And
mm.
this is just like again an instance to make sure that everything is prescribed properly, and people are getting what they actually need.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm excited for this podcast because I was like, hey, isn't it out already? Because I haven't seen it. I think I watched till now all of the podcasts and they were amazing. So I really enjoy kind of the dynamic in them and kind of just, getting to know the people that are in the group, and you kind of know their posts a little bit, but they're so interesting in person as well. So that's a very cool project, what you're doing right now.
Hey, thank you so much. I mean, you guys are insanely cool, and you have such different and colorful paths that you have come till now, and I mean it will develop much more further. I'm just excited to learn everything about you. So yeah, I was curious about that, you talking around your past where you had so much resistance that it was even affecting your bodily functions. What's up with that, man?
Oh yeah, that's a long story for itself. So I can kind of tell you, how I came to this, how I came to this program, how it helped me. So
Yeah,
this is kind
all
of long.
ears.
Yeah, I can start with that. Um, so I don't know. I will start. Actually, I'm living in Leipzig right now. I mean, you visited already. It's a city in Eastern Germany. So we have Bach here. We have great music. And actually, I was born here. I was born here in 1999. And actually, my parents, they came here for studying. So they came from the Black Forest, so near Stuttgart. So it is like in the southwest of Germany. So you might know this because it's, just above Switzerland. And so they came from there, and, they studied here. And then I was born, and we were moving kind of, from my grandparents, which were living in the Black Forest, to Stuttgart, back to them. And it was kind of a journey before I was maybe 3 or 4. And so I was growing up in Stuttgart, and I had it good there. My parents really worked their asses off to really get me in a private school. So I had a very good start for me, and I don't know, it was a good place to grow up. We have a lot of industry down there. There's Porsche, there's Daimler, so Mercedes-Benz, so all the big companies down there. And I had kind of a good childhood, I would say. And like I said, I went to a private school. I had everything, and I was kind of a good student. And I was really good to get along with, I think. So I never had problems finding any friends. Even though we moved a lot, but I never had this problem, of not finding friends. I don't know, being picked on or something like that. It has never happened to me. So I was kind of a people pleaser, I would say, kind of me. And this was really how I grew up. And when I went to school, and when I went to middle school, high school, I had lots of friends. I also got the captain of the football team, which was very important to me at the time, right? Yeah,
Nice.
so the surface, everything was good. I had like a friends, everything. And underneath, there's always some trauma that comes with growing up, or some fears, maybe some shame that I took on. But it all looked good. And this kind of bubbled up for me when I was maybe around 13, 14. Because when I went to the school, we always had, like, every Monday and Friday, we had kind of this coming together with all the students from the school. And you know, I really liked presenting things. I really liked speaking on stage. And you know, the teachers sometimes came to me and they said, "Hey Nick, do you want to you know, make this announcement? You want to read this and stuff?" And so I was like, yeah, because I loved the validation. You know, I kind of loved standing up there, you know, and everybody watching me kind of. I loved that. And so I was doing this, and you know, this one day I had to speak in front of the whole school, and I was going up there, and I was pretty nervous, but you know, I always managed to don't make it look like that and make it look good. And actually, this day, you know, I was very nervous, and what I found out afterwards, that I was really sweating, and that I had kind of a sweaty ass. So I don't know if you say it like this, but you know, the shorts I wore this day, they were kind of this light brown, and you know, me sweating a little bit. You know, you really saw this, and you know, I kind of made my speech, and I went back to my place, and you know, everything great. I was happy. You know, I kind of get the validation from the other people, and you know, then you know, the event is over, and there's a girl coming to me, and I think, oh, I don't know, I think she's pretty attractive, so she thinks probably I'm very cool. And she was like, "Hey, you know, just that you know, we all kind of thought that you maybe shit your pants or something." And I was like, "Oh no," you know, and I was like, "Oh, I was oof." And you know, this was really really embarrassing for me. And you know, I really went to school that day really, or I went to the classroom very ashamed, you know, kind of, you know, shoulders down, kind of not trying to make any waves or something. And you know, like Julian also says that, you know, when you're a kid, you know, really the classroom is the world, the classroom is everything. And for me, it was like, you know, this was kind of my reality crashed, you know. I kind of, you know, I was really exposed. And this was something that really, you know, I was really scared about. And I was really, yeah, kind of afraid for other people to, I don't know, pick on me for that or find out. And actually, something like this never happened. So the first day, maybe, you know, a couple of my friends, we talked about it, we kind of joked about it. I kind of shaked it off. And this wasn't a problem for me. And actually, nobody ever, you know, bullied me for this or anything, and it was never a topic afterwards. But for me, you know, this was really something that kind of, you know, colored my experience of school. And from this day forward, you know, I remember I was really being hyper, you know, hyper active in my mind to really look out for threats, you know, really look out for people that might talk about me. And, you know, it was kind of this state of paranoia. And there were these sensations, there were these emotions, if you want to, you know, that haven't been resolved. And, you know, me as a 14, 15-year-old, you know, the way I viewed it, I was experiencing these sensations. And, you know, I think kind of the way we get conditioned is really to push it away, you know, and to not be aware of it because, you know, I was afraid of them. And so this was kind of my tactic, like going through school for the rest of, you know, time of school, to really push these sensations away that I was associating with it. And, you know, this was really coloring my experience. And, you know, really from there on, I remember, you know, really being tight in my stomach, especially, and also kind of in my chest. And, you know, this really stayed with me. And I was always, like I said, I was always resisting it, pushing it down there. And, you know, I'm pretty sure because like maybe half a year after this, you know, this was really when I kind of got these, you know, kind of bodily problems. And also, you know, I couldn't eat anything. I was sensitive to gluten and a lot more things. And it progressively basically got worse because, you know, the whole time I got triggered and I was pushing it down there again. And, you know, this is also what we say in transformation mastery: whatever you resist persists. So it's kind of funny how this relates to that. And, you know, me at the time, I was really stubborn. I was just a teenage boy, and I was pushing this always down. And so it got worse and worse, really progressively, you know. And for me, you know, it reached a point where, I don't know, I graduated at some time, at some age, and then I went to business school after this for 3 years. And, you know, really this was kind of hellish for me. You know, every day I kind of developed also this crazy fears of just, you know, people looking at me and, you know, what do they think? I was really crazy, really afraid of people, you know, just sitting in a room with people was pretty scary at some point for me. And yeah, you know, I was really fighting through that. And for me, it kind of reached a tipping point when I was 19 and when I was also graduating this. And, you know, then I was like, you know, fuck this place, fuck Stuttgart, you know, I was always unhappy here. So, you know, I want to travel. I kind of want to get out of here. And I kind of booked this one-way ticket, like I said, to Vietnam. I was traveling to this place. I don't know why, because they had rice probably, because this was kind of the only thing that I could really eat good that, you know, wouldn't cause any problems. And it was like, you know, they have rice. I have a friend from there, so let's go there. And I booked this one-way ticket there. And, you know, I landed there, and the first week probably was really good because there were all of these new things, you know, my subconscious were, you know, not really adapted to it, and I couldn't, you know, I could push away all of these sensations. But actually, I think after a week or, you know, maybe 2 weeks, all of these sensations, they would come back. I would feel scared once more, scared of people. And, you know, this was really coming back up for me. And, you know, I just went to another place, but it's kind of this thing that we also say in transformation mastery, that, you know, wherever you go, there you are. And this was really the thing for me. And, you know, I was really stubborn. I didn't sleep in hostels then because I was really scared, you know, of being there. And I was kind of booking a hotel for myself for, I think, 3 nights. And I kind of wanted to regroup for myself. And, you know, I remember having this this bus trip the next day. So the day afterwards, I had a bus trip. And, you know, I was really scared about that, you know, worrying, all in my head. And, you know, this was really kind of a sketchy hotel room as well, because this was, I don't know, weird room, weird energy. The owner was kind of sketchy, and the bed was really bad. So, you know, really hard bed. And so I remember this night, you know, I couldn't go to sleep because I was so worried, you know, I was kind of trying to distract myself with videos and stuff. And when I wanted to get up to get to the bus, you know, I couldn't do it anymore because I was getting so tense in my stomach. And, you know, this was really kind of a turning point for me, because, you know, me not being able to get up, and I'm on a kind of another city on the other side of the world. This was really scary to me, and I really had to take 2 days from there on to really recharge, you know, even being able to get back up and to be okay. And, you know, really from there on, I was like, okay, like I can't just run away from these sensations, you know, I kind of have to get to the cause. And, you know, then I went back to Germany. I made it with a flight back, and I think I lost like 8 kilograms or so in this 2 weeks, because, you know, I was so drained from it, and I just couldn't eat the whole time. And
Oh
yeah,
my God.
yeah, this was crazy. And I wasn't fat as well, so, you know, this wasn't an issue for me. And yeah, from there on, you know, it took some time to really discover Julian's content. But really, then I discovered his content, and it was really landing with me. And so I did, you know.
And how did you discover it?
Sorry?
How did you discover it?
Oh, I think I watched the content of him, you know, already when he was doing other videos, and, you know, then he kind of translated transformation mastery, and yeah, I don't know, but I kind of came into this program of his, the 21 day fear challenge or something. No fear challenge, I think it was. And it was like a challenge where, you know, there was also an interactive Facebook group, and there were 21 days, and you did like all of these challenges, you know, doing some looking back on your past, and also doing some live videos to trigger yourself. And this was really how I discovered his content. And, you know, these challenges, they were so threatening to me, because, you know, you had to really show yourself in the group, you had to share your biggest fears with them and stuff like that. And, you know, every time before these challenges, I was like so tense, you know, so I can't show that, I can't say that. And when I actually did, you know, it was so freeing. And you know, so I came about his program, and, you know, really from there on, I kind of took my path, and also, you know, had some other teachings. You know, this was really just getting it started. And now you're here, or now we are here, and I am here on the certification program. So I think that's kind of cool how that goes, right?
Yeah, definitely amazing. And I could relate to so many aspects that you told in your story, how you grew up, how everything happened. I also remember distinctly having a time where I was super resistant to a lot of things and trying to stuff it all away and push it all down. And you're a great guest for this podcast, by the way, because you were just talking, and then I would think of a question that I wanted to ask, and then you would just answer it without me even having to ask. So I just enjoyed like sitting here and just mentally having this connection with you all the way to Leipzig.
Oh no.
And just you feeling my questions and answering them right away. So great stuff.
Cool. I wasn't sure actually if you asked a question already, because you kind of lagged from me, and I was like, I just keep talking. But nice, that's cool.
I have one question though that I would like to ask. And
Yeah.
this question is regarding this girl when she came up to you and told you that your pants looked like you shit yourself. Why did she do that? Like, what was she thinking? What do you think?
I don't know. I think she was I think she saw that it was kind of embarrassing, in that context. And I think that she didn't want me to be clueless about it. Because maybe she thought, hey, maybe, the people will pick on him or something, or, he don't even know about it. But that's a good question. I never thought about it. Or maybe she had some sympathy. That's what I think, really. I think she wasn't really trying to insult me or something, but she just was kind of sympathetic and wanted to, make that clear for me.
So she was sympathetic and told you shit your pants. Like, maybe the word would be different.
Yeah, hey, I don't remember the situation right, but I don't remember it like being very, very offensive or anything, I remember being scared afterwards, but I don't think she had a bad will, but can't really picture it completely. Yeah, I'm not sure really.
Yeah, I think that well, a lot when it happens like with children or with young adults. I remember that Henry Cavill, like the guy who plays Superman and The Witcher and whatever he's doing, I think he's the sexiest man alive or something like that. He just like got his super awards and everybody likes him. And he talked about how kids picked on him in high school. And I remember him saying, well, I don't hold it against them that they did that. It's just like children, and they're trying to experiment socially or push boundaries and see how people react. And like when you were talking, I was thinking she probably liked you and didn't know how to start a communication with you. So she said something that would be kind of a bit special that no one else would say. But you said she came up to you, right? And it wasn't something to embarrass you. So that's like crazy perspective how you took it and how maybe she intended it.
That's a crazy idea, man, that she wanted to have my attention. I mean, that's possible, but man, you just changed my whole view on this, because actually, this could all have been played out in my head, and actually, I don't know, maybe nobody laughed at me or something like that. And now I'm
Yeah, because like you said that, right? No one made fun of you for that, and everybody was like completely normal with it. It was just your head, right?
That's crazy, man. This is kind of mind-blowing, because you're just saying that, this would mean if I have interpreted this situation wrong. But actually, I think I didn't interpret it wrong, because I think, I talked about with a friend of mine, later on. But actually, this is kind of also what we say, what we have in the program, really building your foundation on the wrong assumption, So, from my perspective, could have been like, it could have been like, oh, these people all laughed at me, and I was so embarrassed, and actually, maybe this wasn't the case. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you could take it like either day, like they're gonna go home and talk about me because this was so funny, right? So I made their day.
Yeah. It really depends on which headspace you're in, yeah, right? Which mindset also a little bit, like, this could be a funny story, and today I tell it as a funny story. I sometimes introduce myself like this in groups or something, like a group setting or something. I introduce myself with that. But back then it was really dangerous for me, and it was really kind of this life-threatening situation. So it really depends on the situation that we're in, right?
Definitely. And it's also amazing how all this stuff that's in the subconscious is running us, even if we know that we have the subconscious and that there is a lot of stuff there, and we know how to behave properly, and we know how to be constructive in talking. And I was just talking to Alex a couple days ago, and I was telling him about a situation that I had very recently with my girlfriend. I was traveling in Southeast Asia, and she was gone for like 4 or 5 weeks. And at one point, we got into an argument with texting, and I was just texting like crazy. And I just saw trying to push the boundary. So just offer like many different possibilities for her to say something so I could get angry at her. And I did this for, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and she hasn't really said anything that would like make me super angry. And that was even more frustrating. So I was like pushing it even more. And at some point I just realized that I was doing that. Like there was a part of me like from behind, and he was like, just push and try to make like create the situation and make it happen.
Yeah.
And when I realized that, I just started laughing. Like my state changed from really this frustration and anger into just bursting out laughing, like, oh my God, what have I been doing? And then I wrote it also to her, like, I just realized I've been completely crazy, and there's just like this part of me that was trying to spark this argument, and I'm so sorry, I'm laughing right now. And she's like, are you joking? Is this real?
Yeah. Hey, that's funny. It's funny that you try to get this argument by default, and then you realize, oh man, I don't have to have that. And you said something good, because we always, life tries to give us these these situations that we can really face these things. And for me also, it was so unnecessary. I just had this one situation, and I was so stubborn. I was pushing it down so much, my whole teenage years. And it got so big eventually. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. And at some point I was really like, I can't get around it. I just have to face it, man. And I think most things, and this is so dangerous, because most things, they're so little right now, because there will be those patterns in our lives where we try to fuck up a relationship or something, and we can't even see it because it isn't big enough already, right? And yeah, that's kind of a scary thought right now.
Well, kind of, but I think also over the years you get super attuned with it. Like, I think I developed a skill where I could really tell you a lot about a person in a very short time. Like I'd say maybe I'm 95% right most of the time, but I can like really see people and just say something about their history or about their personality type or how they would react. Like I can put them in these constellations just by very small things that they're doing. And it's actually very easy to say if you see someone using a certain type of vocabulary, or someone having some type of body language. You can really tell where they're at, what their value system is. Sometimes you can't really tell what's down there. We also have this in the program, like everyone has their own backstories, but you can also see some certain patterns of trauma emerging, right? So if somebody's, let's say, socially anxious, you can tell that there is something that is making them behave in a social anxious way. You can't really tell what it is, but you know where I'm going with this. And this is also what I love most about the method that Julian is presenting, because it's so simple and yet so universal, because you can go and find out any issue that's going on beneath. And it doesn't matter if it's anger related or anxiety, and it's not like specific anger related advice, because I have had anger issues in the past. I was grinding a lot of my teeth, like maybe for almost 10 years. I think when I got 17 or 18, I started doing that. And like all the classic anger therapies didn't really help. Like at some point, I even broke my hand because I thought that I will be old enough and mature enough so I would let out my anger at that moment where I felt it. So I punched the sofa that you see behind me. And I punched it in the cushion, but below the cushion was like a wooden thing. So I punched it so hard that I actually got a boxer's fracture in my hand from that one.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. My mother also did that. You know, she hit the wall because she was very angry, and you know, her hand broke at some point. And no, that's really kind of stupid if you think about it. But you know, you want to let go the anger. I understand that. But I think that's interesting. Have you were you able with Julian's method to let go of your anger, you think? Or parts of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. And I mean, like, I already did that at the point where I punched the sofa. And the reason I punched the sofa was because I was thinking, you know, I'm an adult and I'm responsible, and now I'm feeling this emotion. So I want it to just let it come up at this moment, since I'm already feeling it, so fully accepting it. But I'll do it in a safe space. So I'll punch something that's not hard, that's not a wall. Like I used to do that when I was 16 or 17 or 18, just like punching walls and doors and stuff. And I will punch like this soft cushion here and nothing bad will happen. And yet I managed to break my hand. So let's maybe find the better solution to like have a completely, that's what I feel like. The longer I do releases, the longer I meditate, the longer I'm having this new kind of mindset, my body is becoming more and more like water. So whatever comes in, it just like kind of floats out, and it doesn't have like these huge buildups or explosions. I try to really minimize any kind of resistance or pushing things off or whatever.
Cool.
What's your experience like with delayed resistance or delayed expression with any kind of emotion?
I think I had an experience today because actually, you know, I was not meditating for 2 or 3 days now, and I was kind of stressed because of my job, and I was kind of deciding consciously, you know, the couple last 2 days that, you know, maybe I just want to push it away right now, and because I don't work, you know, so long anymore with these colleagues, and it's just this week, and I can kind of push it down, you know, for now. And actually, I thought kind of a part of thought for me, or I thought a part of me thought that I wouldn't, you know, this wouldn't store up really. And another part of me, you know, actually knew, of course, that it would store up. And actually, you know, I was meditating just an hour before or something, and I was feeling also, you know, anger inside of me. And I kind of a little bit let out this anger. So, you know, I was kind of moving a little bit, really concentrating on it, pushing it out a little bit. And I realized that under the anger, you know, there was some hurt. And, you know, it actually came from a situation that that I had with my girlfriend, you know, a couple of days ago, maybe 3 days ago. And from this standpoint, or from this situation on, you know, I felt kind of hurt, felt kind of sad. And, you know, then I was kind of rationalizing why I could, you know, kind of you know, put this away for 2 days or 3 days. And, you know, I just let it out like an hour before. And, you know, now I'm really free. I feel like, you know, now my perception has changed. You know? So I think kind of these emotions that we push away, you know, they kind of get, you know, just stored up down there. And, you know, they kind of the anger puts above it, and, you know, they are stored down there. So I think it's kind of a mechanism of the body or of the mind to really protect that from coming up.
Absolutely. Like, and Julian also talks about these layers of resistance. So sometimes you cannot even get directly to the first thing, but you have like to open up the first layer, then the second, then the third, and then the actual thing will come out. I found that super interesting. There's some people talking, you know, about the butterfly effect, that if you like have a butterfly in I don't know, Shanghai, and it flaps its wings, it could cause a hurricane somewhere in the US. So just like this small thing, and then it creates like this chain reaction. And I found that often to be also the case with the emotions, because we like turn on our minds. So there is maybe hurt, right? But then the mind would say, no, I'm not hurt. I want to fight back. So you maybe have anger. And then you notice that you're angry, and maybe you don't want to be angry, so you feel ashamed that you were angry. So you have shame as the next layer, but shame is like not a great emotion. So maybe you feel regret, and you now feel shame. So there's the next layer, and then and everything is then resisted, right? Because you don't want to feel that, you don't want to feel that, and so there's like these layers that you build up. And sometimes I even noticed that this is how triggers work. It wouldn't just be like one emotion bringing me from A to B, like if a trigger happened, but it could be like a range of many different things. And this is also what often I found happens with people like they're in a state. You could even have like 3 or 4 different triggers, and they all bring you to the same state, which maybe could be anger, maybe would be righteousness, pride, maybe would be fear. I don't know. Like, for example, what's happening in the media, everything is designed to trigger, so you have the fear. There's very little things that you will say, oh, someone built a new school. Wow, amazing. Or we have, sometimes they put like these beautiful pictures from the telescope that came in, but like most of the media is just fear trigger.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it's all putting up resistance about it, you know. And I think the main thing that I kind of realized from Julian's program or going through the certification, before I thought that I have to really let go of emotions, you know, that I don't want to feel certain emotions and that they are bad and they have to go, and I kind of have to let them go. And actually, I think this is something, or now I think this is something that happens naturally. And actually, the problems is just the resistance and the attachment, right? Because some emotions you don't really allow yourself to feel them, or I don't allow myself to feel them because I put immediately resistance on them. And other emotions or other states, you know, like I don't know, like happiness, or happiness, not a state, but it can be a state, or love or something. You know, this, yeah, I'm really attached towards them. And you know, this is kind of what is really bringing me out of balance, you know, this resistance and attachment at the same time. And you know, sometimes now what I do, or when I realize, oh, I'm triggered a little bit, and you know, normally I would say, oh, I don't want to feel that now, you know, push it away. I'm just like, you know, what if I would feel like this, if I feel like this in my body for the rest of my life, you know, could I be okay with that? And you know, immediately when I think like this, and I think like, okay, I'm probably going to feel like this for the rest of my life, you know, this is it. Then probably it shifted, or at the same time it shifted, and it's like, oh, but it's good. Hey, I feel lighter now. That's great. And suddenly, you know, I get in a good state if you want to. And I think this is kind of a hack that I just realized with this program, you know, just this, if I feel like this like the rest of my life, you know, that's like it. So let's deal with it. And it's like immediately I'm like, oh, I feel better. I feel good, you know.
Oh my God, that's great. I had just an experience like that this morning. So I told you yesterday that I was a little bit sick, so I didn't do the cold shower for a long time, but I was more meditating. And then yesterday I went into the shower and it was a completely different experience. Like the cold water just came, but I was completely in my body, like feeling the cold, embracing the cold, but zero resistance. I could like breathe the normal cycles through it. Like I think the pulse stayed normal. It was absolutely amazing, absolutely great. And so today I went into the shower expecting like the same result. And as soon as the water hit me, I was like, so okay, let's try to breathe. And then I would be like breathing, but it would still wouldn't work. It wasn't as regular. And then I would get angry around that. So come on, man, you can do it. Like you did it yesterday. And I could literally feel the resistance against the cold. Like just it wasn't maybe even the muscles, but I just like an inner resistance toward it. And I was like, okay, I don't think I'm able to get rid of this resistance right now. So yeah, let's embrace it. Let's just say it's cool to be here in the shower with all this resistance against the cold water. And guess what happened?
Yeah.
It started getting away and suddenly it became completely all right. But it's just about this it's so crazy, not wanting to feel something, like exactly the resistance just amplifies itself and it makes the situation much worse. Like the state actually gets amplified just by resisting. And also in meditations I have the opposite. Like in some meditations, especially like the letting go one, this is my absolute favorite, because at the end it gets so light and then you can like drift off in these heights, right? It's amazing. And I noticed like from the second time when I started doing it, because I thought it was so amazing, I already had an expectance, like this outcome expectancy, how it will feel like, and it didn't happen. So like everything good that came out of it the first time, I expected the second time to happen, didn't come. And then I realized like mid meditation that I was attached to that feeling that I had the last time, and then I let go and experienced a completely different feeling, which was also great. Allowed me to actually have an experience without being attached to a certain kind of experience that I liked and that I was going for.
Yeah, cool. Hey, this attachment is so tricky, right? Because you know you think you just have to get rid of resistance, but actually the attachment does the same thing, kind of, you know. So I always have this as well when I'm, you know, people kind of you know, they give me applause or something, and you know they say I'm doing something really good, then I'm immediately I can feel how I'm attached towards it, you know, and I want it to happen again, and I might do the same thing, and suddenly, you know, they won't be that interested into me, and actually I'm already expecting you to notice this you know, this pat on the shoulder or something, and oh, you did great again, but actually, you know, just because I have all of this attachment, it doesn't work out this way like it did the first time. And I think that's a really tricky thing, because before, you know, this work, I never thought about this, that that attachment is also so big, and that it also colors your experience so much with that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, well, with resistance, maybe we get like accustomed to it because a lot of the bad stuff that we push down and that runs us, right? That's resistance. But as you say, attachment can be just as important to let go, because it doesn't feel like resistance. It's not that one would notice colors your perception, but it does. It's just I find it to be much more subtle, and I find it to be much more like, what's the difference between outcome expectancy and intention? Go to a direction. I want to create this new amazing project. What's outcome expectancy and what's the intention, right? This is
Mm.
Tough one.
Yeah, that's a tough one for sure. And you have to really be a Jedi master at this, right? To really be able to, really make difference between of that, because yeah, I found out, or I think you really want to have this this intention to let go and to do something, but you don't want to really expect it so much, right? Because this would ruin it once more, and it's kind of a paradox how most of these things work in transformation mastery. Yeah, but what have been your favorite things so far, or with the certification?
Oh my God, you guys, like, you guys are so amazing. Getting to know you and getting to know every single one of you personally. And I mean, I met you real life. It's like just this vibe that's coming out and that's resulting, and just so much knowledge and experience, and also like this shared philosophy. I think this is what makes me super excited every time I see one of you guys. I'm like, these young dogs where they're just like happy to see someone. So I feel like that. I think 2 days ago, I came home, I was so drained and I really didn't want to do anything, just like, and just maybe watch some Netflix or something. And then I was actually chatting with some from the group, and they called me, and then we ended up talking like for 2 hours or something. Awesome, fully recharged after that. And I had another call for also 1 hour, and then I think it was already 11 in the evening, and I was like still ready to go. Like from this completely discharged person at 7, 8 o'clock was I'm gonna fall asleep, to this huge energy boost. Like, I think the power of the group, this is like the biggest one for me.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes it's, yeah, I agree with what you said with the power of the group. And I think sometimes that's even too much, right? Because sometimes, if we're having like a really good call, or sometimes I did this tag teams with Brandon, and we were just going back and forth and, really improvising and having fun. And, I found after these sessions, sometimes, I really had problems with going to sleep because, my mind was so turned on, and I was like, just like on a drug, with having great conversations, cool people to chat with. And it's like, you're having all of these ideas and all of these cool plans. And like sometimes then I just, wondered that I couldn't sleep for, I don't know, till 3 a.m. or something, because I was so hyped up, So I think this is also, do you think this is a kind of attachment? If you are like this hyper happy?
Do you think it's attachment?
I was thinking about that because it's kind of like, I'm projecting the future, and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be cool, and this plan and this. And I don't know if it's, maybe I should be able to let go of this and just go to sleep, really happily. I thought about it like this, but I wasn't sure till now.
Well, you couldn't, because we still don't have like these two-way sleeping masks. But if we had them, maybe it would be like an attachment thing, right? So no, I'm just kidding here. It's a very interesting thing that you mentioned, because I never thought about it in this way. I don't know how much is like future projection, but I oftentimes get into these exalted states where I'm just like super into a project, and then just like working it. And I mean, you could say it's projecting into the future, but I think it's a lot of for me personally, when I'm doing stuff or when I'm preparing it, I'm working at it like right at that moment. And of course, there's the future, how it will look like, how it will feel like. And you could argue that Eckhart Tolle says, no, you should live in the now. But maybe isn't this also the now? Like when you work towards something, like when you're preparing, towards something. I mean, he wrote his book. He also wrote it in the now, but he knew what he was writing before and what he's going to write in the future. So I would argue that especially with positive emotions and positive vibes, I don't think that you get them with attachment. Like when you're really a lot of energy. And I think the expectance of yourself to be able to just go to sleep afterwards because you think you should sleep or you need the sleep, maybe that's some kind of attachment.
Oh yeah, these are kind of the worst nights, right? When you try to go to sleep and you try to force yourself to sleep and it just doesn't work. I have them, you would know, very few times, but I know from friends that they have them very regularly. And you know, this is like the worst night that you can have probably.
Yeah, I have them when I'm overworked, when I have too much stuff to do and somehow like my schedule blows up. And I actually had like one of these yesterday. It was just couldn't fall asleep. I came from a choir rehearsal, and what's funny is also that because I have to be present there and be leading like the full rehearsal for almost 2 hours. I'm super in the moment, and I'm like in this flow state, and it's such a great state. And then afterwards, I'm still awake. So it takes me a while, just like naturally for the body to like calm down. I have it like much faster now than it used to be before. Still, I feel very elevated after it because I think it's just normal to not just do like crazy jumps, but to have some kind of wave. And what I also found was that I think inspiration and generally motivation are much stronger than we think from a biological perspective. Because I remember maybe when I was my early 20s, I don't know how you do your schedule, but I would just get like a rigorous schedule at getting up at 6:30 and then doing breakfast at 7, leaving at 7:30, stuff like that. And by 11, I am in my bed. Everything's turned off so I can sleep. Just have that. And I was starting to burn out because I was just like my day with stuff and doing so much. And I remember like one night, I was just like, oh, I just can't do it, man. I don't want to do this anymore. And then I saw and watched some of American greatest films. I think there's like a top 100 of greatest films ever made. And I think I watched first Casablanca, and then I watched Citizen Kane after. These are like super old, super long. And I watched maybe till 2 or 3 in the morning. And I was really enjoying these films. And then I went to sleep and got up at 6:30.
Just energizing you, right? Because you had a strict routine before, and I guess you're kind of a creative person, and I can see that in you. And you know, I'm also this way, I would say. And for me, it's also this way that I have to change up my routine sometimes, because you know, at some point, I also, when I push down all of these things, all of these emotions, I actually also had a very strict plan, you know, and was doing, you know, a lot of exercises in the morning. You know, I was doing this regularly, really every day, and you know, really out of, you know, really forcing it. And you know, I think it's really good for me to also have like a plan when I'm going to bed, when I'm waking up. And also I like to do those cold showers, but actually I did the same thing as you. I was getting sick and then I wouldn't do them anymore, but I want to start this once more. But actually I love changing up these routines, you know, and adding something new in it. And you know, I found this is very powerful, because otherwise, you know, it's just too boring. And I will really be yeah, stressed out by this, because this is kind of stress, you know, every day doing the same thing, getting the same routine done. And yeah, I love, you know, changing up some things. And yeah, kind of the green tea is something that, that I love to do now. And I will probably keep this in for, I don't know, still a couple of months, and then I will probably drink cola or something in the morning, you know, because I also heard this is very healthy. So, yeah, this will also change your genes probably, but not in a good way, I guess. Yeah, but
that's the thing about
I actually started doing, you know, this challenge, Bring Sally Up, with doing these push-ups, and it's like the song, and you know that?
I don't know the challenge. It sounds sounds very interesting. Yeah.
So it's a song, and it's always like bring Sally up, bring Sally down, and it's like this little slow pace, you know. And you know, it's kind of a challenge where you have to do push-up this time. So you're going down all the way when they say bring Sally down, and when they say bring Sally up, you go up. And you know, I started this with a friend, you know, a couple of weeks ago. That we do every day. We do this challenge, and we try to get through the whole song, you know. And I actually took this in my routine now. And this is actually a good one, you know. I really like that because I was kind of messing up on my sport, you know, and this is really good. I'm feeling way more testosteronized, if this is an actually word. Do you also have a sport routine like this? Okay, my craziest takeaway from the meditations from Julian. Can I name one?
Yeah.
I mean, in doing these meditations and also doing the death meditation, you know, this really changed kind of, I think it kind of changed the way I see the world, because like I just said, you know, I think it's crazy that we have all of these push down emotions and all of this charge. And actually, you know, just an hour ago when I was, you know, kind of pushing my anger down and kind of my hurt down, I think I had a different view on the world. And I think that's so crazy, you know, how this really plays into it. You know, also by meditating, I don't know, like, I think it's so crazy that certain, I think I'm a physiotherapist, and I think it's so crazy that many people, you know, they came with this back issues and, you know, this tense muscles, and, you know, it really has to do something with certain kind of emotions, you know. I don't know if you can measure that. I don't know if that's proven, but, you know, it's pretty well known that when you're stressed, you know, you always ask people, you know, maybe if they say, oh, you know, I'm hurting down up here, you know, all of my muscles are tense, then, you know, it's very usual to say, you know, but I'm stressed, you know, I had a stressful week, you know. And I think it's so crazy that this also connects, you know, with letting go, and that if you let go more, you know, I feel that I'm more relaxed. I feel, you know, that also my voice is getting a little deeper. Maybe I can talk louder. And, you know, this was something crazy when I just looked at all the videos of mine, also, you know, from 5-6 years ago. And, you know, I talked to the camera just passively. And, you know, my voice was so much different back then, because my voice was a little more sheltered, you know, maybe a little higher at the end and something like that. And just by letting go, I realized how more, you know, how wider my chest gets, you know, and not on a bodily sense, but actually not on a feeling sense. And I can talk louder. And I think this is something that is really fascinating to me, because it's really something that I can measure and that I can see on a camera, right?
Absolutely. I know for I studied with so many classical singers, and almost all of them do some kind of training like this, like either meditation or letting go techniques, or philosophy is like your body has just to be well connected. You have to be able to use your body, and it should be able to come into resonance. And when singing, for example, and these are exactly the byproducts that you said, like your voice gets more natural, it gets more deep, and also it gets louder because you just allow attention so it can vibrate more, right? And then you can project super easy. So basically letting go is also just the exact path that you need to take to authenticity, to like get to really have your voice, right? To have your authentic, everything that's authentic. It's just so simple to achieve, basically.
I love what you say with the singers, because I didn't actually know that they, you know, that you actually would do something like that they have practices like that. But I think it makes sense, because, you know, you also have to let go on the if you're singing, and if you're singing in front of a lot of people, then I guess, you know, if you have a lot of stirred up anger, maybe you're kind of feeling sick, or just, you know, sad, then probably, you know, you couldn't really get, like you said, the volume, you know, of your voice. And I wonder, you know, if you've ever been on a kind of a if you've ever seen a singer, and, you know, you can pinpoint, you know, oh, probably he has a bad day, or probably he has stored something up, because actually, you know, he isn't really projecting as much as usual. You know, did you ever have a thought like this, or, you know, experience like this?
Absolutely, like all the time. And especially like the better you know someone, the easier it is to spot worst that you could do to a singer is just like throw them off before they go on stage, especially if they're not like centered and know how to do these kind of exercises themselves, to center themselves. You can throw someone off so easily. And I remember of certain singers like distinctly who always were in their mind, like the mind would be blocking everything, and they would use the proper technique, but it would just not sound. If let's say a person who doesn't really think at all, if they come on stage, and that's like also it's almost a running gag that you would have like singers, they think, oh my god, these singers, oh my god, like why don't they think? But it's actually how you sing properly, because you just like disengage the mind, and then you can really project, and you can really live what you are doing.
Yeah, that's interesting that singers do that. And actually, I think you also had Brandon on there, and I think he also talked about doing it with goalkeepers and stuff. And I think this is also very interesting, because if I think about football players, and I played football for a long time, you know, not very high, but I know a couple of people that are actually semi-professionals. And I think the pace, you know, everything happens in so fast pace in sports on this level, that you have to be able to let go of things so quickly, right? Because especially as a goalkeeper, you know, my brother played as a goalkeeper for, I think, 5 years or something. And for him, you know, it was really important. And I was his trainer at the time. And for him, it was really important, you know, to get these kind of disappointments out of his head, because, you know, as a goalkeeper, you might concede a goal, and, you know, everybody's watching you. You know, if you do a mistake, this is costing you something. And I also remember, because I've always been a center back, so I don't know if you know football, but you know, as a center back, you're kind of in defense, and, you know, probably the last man before your goalkeeper, before somebody else comes, you know, to the goal, and the striker comes. If they pass you, basically they are through on goal. And I remember also being very, very anxious, actually, in the back of my mind, because you know, I was always fearing missing a ball or something. And, you know, the more I feared it, and the more I was resisting it, kind of, the more things like this happened, I remember. And, you know, I think really these great defenders and these great goalkeepers, you know, they have to be so let go of anything. They have to be so, I don't know, they have to be able to let go of something so fast, because otherwise it will bother them. You know, they will kind of get these thoughts in their head. They will, their mind will be activated, and otherwise, you know, they couldn't perform on this level. And I think you can see that with players maybe sometimes, you know, that are better with that, and other people, they hang on to these situations that happened before, and, you know, they just start losing and losing from there on. And I think this is an area where I can kind of see this, because I spend a lot of time in this. And I think it's everything like this, right? If you spend a lot of time in a certain field, then, you know, you can see if the person is relaxed or not.
Absolutely. I think it's also one of the main barriers for myself to socializing with other people. I think that I was so tense inside, and just like also, you described like much before this high it also relates to like the sports thing. Like when you're a goalie, you can't be like hyper vigilant because the mind just doesn't process like consciously enough. So I was like this in social situations, and I remember, and they were like, "Why are you so tense? Like, what's going on with you?" And I'm like, "Am I tense?"
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine
What
you
do you
being
say
like.
that I'm tense? I don't even know like how tense I was. But I was always like a very cerebral person and trying to figure out everything with this thing here, which also has its merits. I think a lot of our society is built on the mind,
Sure.
but it's not really translating to quality of life, is it?
Yeah, for sure. But I had this thought kicking into my mind. Wouldn't it be funny, you know, if you would be able to meet, you know, your version of yourself like 5 years ago or something, and you know he's just running around, and you're like, now you have all the experience that you have today, and you're coming across this guy or you know whatever person, and like it's just yourself 5 years ago, and you know I think for most people it wouldn't be, or um, if you don't really try to improve yourself, or you don't try to get this content, or you think about this content, then probably it would be like a pleasant experience and you would go with him. But actually, you know, sometimes I think, hey, if this person like me 5 years ago, you know, I probably wouldn't be able to relate to him because like you said, he would be so tense in certain situations, in social situations, you know, some jokes I couldn't make or so, or he would be angry or something. So how would you think? What would it be like the experience meeting you, like let's say 5 years ago?
I don't know, like maybe even 10 wouldn't be too much different, I would say, because I already had a very similar value system then. I already was on this path. I wasn't at the place where I'm today, but I knew where I want to go. But maybe, let's say 10 years ago or something, I was thinking, like, also before you asked this question, so I love it how we're vibing. Like, that thing that I was going to ask, or a very similar one. I don't know. I think I was extremely very enthusiastic to develop myself, to like realize my potential, to learn as much as I can. But a lot of not wanting to be lazy and wanting to become like special, so I could feel my self-worth. And the more I did it, the worse it became. Like I doing a lot of stuff and doing it the best as I can, and smoking out competition. And I think it was this unbelievably uncomfortable. I wouldn't even compete with other people. I would just like let them know that they have no chance from beginning, you know, which is like the ultimate destruction.
But it's a good tactic, you know. It's a good tactic to win.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, again, it has its merits. Like when you're doing martial arts and you go into the ring, there's to your opponent. And I think this is the thing that I saw a lot of other people as opponents instead of colleagues, or instead of like this scarcity mindset versus a abundance mindset, where you could just say, hey, we're all friends, let's learn from each other, right? And I think if I would myself, like if I could teach myself one thing, I think I would teach myself what the ego is. Like, yeah, I'd try to just explain the concept of the ego, because it really hit me, and that started the change.
That's a good one. That's a cool one, yeah. Think about what I would
wrap it up.
Yeah, we want to wrap it up. I think that's good because I'm kind of smiling the whole time because I'm kind of getting words from you, and I try to get the context. And this would be so funny if the whole time you would say something way different, and I was like, yeah, but all this. So yeah, but I enjoy the conversation. I hope you can do something with that. And otherwise we just talk once more.
Absolutely, it was a great talk anyway, and I think we can take something. But I mean, before we wrap it up, I wanted to say, like, to wrap it up, I would like to hear from you. What would you say to yourself 5 years ago or 10 years ago or something?
Oh, that's a good one. I wanted to get away from this question, so I wanted to wrap up this
I know. You blamed
me there. There was some resistance actually.
the techniques, but
oh, that's a good one. But I think for me, actually, because I was so resistant and that, I wouldn't allow anything to go naturally their way or something. I wouldn't really allow life to go their way. I would actually give me kind of the advice of going with this mindset that I just explained before. Just if I would be put in this body forever and I would just feel what I feel right now forever, could I be cool with that? And the answer is yes. And if I would given me this tip, and I would really also have heard to me, and I would kind of try to make it happen, I think then I wouldn't have had to go this far and found out about this content. Yeah, I think this really just taking the sensations as they come and being cool with them, staying as well, because don't want to go away for these sensations. I think that's it.
awesome. That's really a great takeaway. Nick, I enjoyed our talk today so much. We could go on for hours. I mean, really, this is just great.
Yeah, probably we could do that. Nice. Okay, so
we'll just do it next time, right?
Yeah. So have a good night. I'm going to sleep now.
Yeah. You too. You too, man.
Yeah. Bye-bye. See you.